look now at some additional measurable, observable behavior about syntactic islands. Here we're going to turn to children's preferences. Here, in particular, child knowledge is going to be measured by preferred interpretation behavior, because you can't just ask kids how acceptable they find a WH dependency, or at least we haven't found a good way yet. So instead, you have to do something a little bit more nuanced. So in 2008, de Villiers et al. Asked, how do children prefer to interpret potentially ambiguous WH questions? Let me show you an example of this. We have this boy, he's very energetic, he likes to fix stuff, and look over here, we have some things on a table. We have a kitty who's in desperate need of fixing, and we have a penguin sitting next to the kitty. Great, okay. Here's our context. Now, with this, we might ask, what did the boy fix the cat that was lying on the table with? All right, so think about that for a moment. What did the boy fix the cat that was lying on the table with? There are actually two ways, potentially, maybe there are more, but at least two ways to interpret this. So one, we're asking, what did the boy fix the cat with? There's some cat, this cat's lying on a table, and we're asking about the fixing. What did he fix the cat with? And maybe an answer is something like a needle and thread. Now, another potential interpretation is that the cat was lying on the table with something, in this case a penguin, and we're asking about that. What did the boy fix the cat that was lying on the table with? Penguin, right? So which interpretation did kids prefer? They strongly prefer this one, the needle and thread, what did the boy fix the cat with, as opposed to this one. They strongly disprefer what was the cat lying on the table with, right? And so the one they disprefer actually corresponds to this particular WH dependency, right? Which in fact turns out to be a complex NP crossing dependency, one of the islands we talked about before. And so in fact, how much do they disprefer it? This much. They only barely prefer it at all, very, very little, right? So on the scale from 0 to 1, where 1 is I really love it and 0 is I never love it, they're way down here. And so what de Villiers et al. Did was get these sorts of preferences for a variety of other WH dependencies as well. You can see sort of the collection of them over here. I'm not going to go through them right now, but a number of them were dispreferred, maybe some, and then there was one kind of in the middle, and then there were a couple where they preferred some of the longer ones. So for example, who did the policewoman help to call? Kids actually rather preferred the who are we calling versus who are we helping. Okay, so you get this array of preferences, and that sort of signals the internalized knowledge about WH dependencies in these cases. So let's turn now to the last sort of empirical data we're going to look at for the moment, which has to do with the frequency of those lexical items and how they affect WH dependency preferences. So Liu and colleagues in 2019 and 2022, this is something I mentioned before without actually giving you more details, but what they found is that the acceptability of WH dependencies can depend on the lexical item of the main verb in these sorts of structures, right? So what did she say that he saw? What did she think that he saw? Adults tend to like these, versus what did she whine that he saw? What did she mumble that he saw? These tend to feel more islandy. We don't like them as much. In fact, when you plot these out, the frequency of the main verb when it takes a complementizer phrase as a complement, that seems to affect how acceptable adults find this kind of WH dependency. What did she verb? What did she whine? What did she say? What did she think that he saw in this particular way? So the pattern you're looking for is a positive correlation between the main verb item when it appears in this sort of CP frame and the judged acceptability. So these are our patterns. These are the behavioral targets, again, in more detail, and in sort of the more cartoony versions in less detail. But, the idea is that these judgments and dispreferences can serve as a target for successful acquisition. It's an outcome we can measure. We have measured it in humans. We can measure it in our computational cognitive models.